Let's get into the psychology of this, because a lot of times these shooters have parents who are just like them. And this is why I fully support charging the parents just as the kids. In many of these cases, we are seeing that these parents gifted their children the AR-15s that they then used for the school shootings. Oftentimes, these people are very conservative. Their children are incels. They are antisocial. They have a chip on their shoulder. Maybe they have mental health issues. We all have mental health issues. They have a particular MO. They are mad at the world and they want to punish all of us. And we're also seeing that a lot of these kids talk online and talk to their friends about wanting to shoot up the school. The authorities have been notified. Their parents have been notified. With this school shooter, his parents were notified 2 years ago that he was talking about shooting up a school. And this year for his birthday, guess what he got? Guess what he got? Or maybe it was Christmas. That would be even more poetic. I can totally relate to this because both of my sons love playing bad guys, cops and robbers, all that stuff. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, my violent sons. But I would say pick your battles and open the dialogue, because what's the word I'm looking for? Abstinence isn't gonna work. You can't tell them not to play guns, not to play shooting. It's just not gonna happen. But I tell my sons, guns kill people. Police kill people. War kills people. Those are facts. That's true. If you want to play that you have a gun and you're killing someone, I'm going to pick my battles. But they know the full severity of gun violence. Not intimately, they haven't really shared specifics yet, but I will. They're only 6 and 3, almost 7 and 4, so it's a good conversation starter. It definitely leads to more understanding. I would not be too concerned about that. I would just let it progress and keep boundaries around it and keep the conversation going. Let's get into it, because a lot of times bullying is seen as girls messaging other girls on Instagram about whatever, talking about how somebody looks, okay? But it's not focused on as boys sleeping with girls, spreading rumors about them, or not sleeping with them and telling them that they are, pinning girls against each other, playing into the objectification of girls to benefit certain girls and hurt other girls. I went to high school from 2007 to 2011, and let me tell you, the boys were villains. At the time, right, I thought, we're having girl drama, girl problems, and now I'm looking back and I'm like, no, those boys were atrocious. That was them. And when you're sitting in class and there's somebody who's maybe a little awkward or does something funny, who's gonna pipe up and say something shitty about them? It's gonna be the boys. It's gonna probably be the popular boys. And they just get off easy, right? We look back and we're like, yeah, the girls were such bitches. Nobody bats an eye at the male behavior in high school. For those who don't know, it has been scientifically proven that the trauma of enslavement is weaved into the DNA of Black people in the diaspora from the transatlantic slave trade. And in America, that was just a couple generations ago. So if they can have weaved into their DNA trauma, how do you think white people in this country who have massacred, colonized, genocided, and enslaved numerous groups of people, wiped certain groups off the face of the earth, okay? How do you think that's affected our DNA? When whiteness and maleness does not offer these reject children the privileges that they believed on a cellular level that they are owed, they rebel in the biggest way possible, in the most traumatic way possible, to hurt as many people as possible, to say a big F you to the society that they believe is disenfranchising them. It is a pathology, it is psychological, it is social, and it is historical.
You want to tell me that a 15-year-old boy, 15 years old, are you hearing me? I did not say 35, I did not say 25, I did not say 45, 15, 1 and 5. You want to tell me that it was a 15-year-old that did that to that girl? Literally did that to that girl. Raped and assaulted her. I couldn't even keep reading the story to know if she was unalived because it was just so gruesome. A 15-year-old, the pictures of this woman was every... A 15-year-old child. And you people are calling for rehabilitation. Put it down. Put it down. Put him down. Unless you can prove it, I don't see any way you want to rehabilitate that kind of person out of such violence when they have already started at such a young age? Do you see how dangerous our society is that it has led to children? Now, children are the ones literally being violent to each other. You are complaining that a lot of the feminists online right now are young girls when they are 15-year-old assaulters and rapists. A 15-year-old. I want it to register in your head that this is a child we are talking about. When I was 15, the most I was worrying about was government and literature tests. And I can bet my first child that is neither the first or the last person he will be doing that to. If children are this violent, tell me where we go from here. If putting him down is not the solution in your head, give me a solution. And I'm not saying forgiveness because fuck that shit. And I'm not saying rehabilitation because it does not work. I am waiting for a solution.
When you think about this whole thing, people don't really care about rehabilitation or thinking of a solution which is effective to put these kids in order, because it does not serve capitalism. It does not serve imperialism. Because when we are in this constant state of bickering among each other, and we are not putting our differences aside as the mass, because the rich people are very like 1%. The outer rich, they're like 1%. They can control this group of people based on our beliefs, based on what we know about ourselves, the systemic oppression around us, racism, classism, I'm pretty, you are ugly, that type of thing. So as long as people are constantly looking for things that do not yield them anything, then we're going to produce such children. Because where do you think they learn them from? They learn them from their surrounding. The men, the way they talk about women, how do they talk about women? How do they speak about women? How do they react in women's scenario cases where women are felt to be protected by the men they say they are in love with, or the men who say that they're in love with those very same women? So their children are picking up that, okay, my mom does not like me, does not love me, and they live this life where they want to make other people feel pain just as they are feeling pain. And it starts off young. Do not believe that it doesn't start young. It starts young. Your lack of efficiency as a parent starts showing as a young child. It does not manifest when you're older. When you're older, it manifests into your decisions exploding, because you're 15. And it just tells us that children do act out of violence based to their surrounding. Though I believe that violence is not, or unaliving people is not the solution, I believe that proper punishment needs to be held. A proper punishment needs to be engraved in the child. It needs to be severe. People need to start getting creative about their punishment skills. Because if not, we're going to have problems in the future, because the world will continue falling apart.
I just seen somebody say that race has nothing to do with the issue of school shootings. Now, friend, I need us to be so for real. The typical profile for a school shooter, matter of fact, I'll do you one better. A mass shooter is a white male. And what's so crazy about this is that black boys have been criminalized for years, to the point where their lives have literally been taken because of perceived or assumed threat. I want you to hear me again. Perceived or assumed threat. For centuries, parents have had to raise black boys, teaching them that they need to be careful about how they show up because they don't want to be profiled. Centuries of this. And no matter how many of these mass shootings have happened and will continue to happen, nobody is profiling a little white boy. Not one nobody is profiling a little white boy. They don't see them and be like, damn, I think they could be a school shooter. They certainly do that. for crimes of violence with black boys. Now, what I will say is that it's not just an issue based on race. There's also the gender component, because it is almost always boys. Why? Because boys are raised to be violent. That is a fact. Listen. Argue with your mama. Argue with your mama, but just don't argue with me.